Hello, everybody. This is Cordell with Paranormal Pulse, and this is Paranormal Pulse YouTube channel and our weekly talk show, talk show, maybe. I don't know. It's talk show slash discussion, right, guys? I think that's what it is. And it looks like
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
so tonight and this afternoon, if you're in the United States, Dave's in Scotland, and welcome, Dave. How you doing? And how's the UK doing?
yeah. UK is still on lockdown, but hopefully soon we'll be able to meet with one other person, socially distanced outside, um, and then yeah, which is a luxury, and then we can start getting into some investigations. But other than
Yeah,
that, it's a great time to review audio and video.
and I did want, and I apologize. Dave is the director of Pulse UK over in England, and he's from Scotland. And I do want to give a shout out to Chancey behind me, my cat. She always seems to want to be on the video. And so now I want to introduce Carrie. Carrie, how you doing?
Tired, but good.
Yeah, me and Carrie had an investigation last night. A couple other members, and it turned out to be a really good investigation. It was interesting. A lot of things happened, and on that, I think that's a pretty good segue to the topic today. Um, about and the reason we're having this topic because of if you're really serious about investigating the paranormal, I don't care if it's UFOs, Bigfoot, spirits, hauntings, whatever it is, you either just do it on the fly and it's just about the adventure, guys, or you take it seriously.
Hi, Kimberly.
And if you take it seriously and you actually want to discover stuff and and understand things, um, you have to have protocols in place. You have to have uh, strict protocols in some cases, and you got to define everything and how you're going to function. So that's kind of what tonight broadcast is. And hi, Kimberly, it's good seeing you. And hi to everyone in the chat. I'll post. I always try to get everybody's. Kimberly is a new member of Pulse. And so I'm going to let Dave's going to kind of run this broadcast today, him and Carrie. And Carrie has the Pulse Bible, I think. And we call it the Pulse Bible, at least me and Carrie do. And that has all it's a guide to how we run our group. And that includes investigations. It's loaded with all kinds of good tidbits and great information, guys. And so, Dave, I'm gonna turn it over to you. And the last thing I'm going to say on this before I turn it over to you is that this is how we run Pulse. This is what we try to do. Do we, on every single thing we do we follow it by the letter? Not always, because circumstances can't dictate how you run an investigation based on circumstances. But it's critical. I want to add that it's really critical to follow these things the more people you have at an investigation. Because just controlling a large group, for example, protocols become critical. So, Dave, I'm going to let you do an intro on this, and while you do that, I'm going to bring up what you typed up, which is just an overview. Um, and then, so go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Pulse follows a five stage process, and if Cordell wants to bring it up, stage one is probably the hardest stage, and that's actually finding and securing a location. It's a number of locations now have closed their doors. Some groups, particularly in the UK, Some of the groups seem to be kind of having an open house and charging other people, and we have lost a lot of locations. So how do you find and secure a location? And that's something which we have a lot of experience of, a lot of success with, and we'll take you through that shortly. The stage 2 and stage 3 for us is a kind of what we call a location visit. We kind of visit the area. We try to gauge the kind of the traffic, the pedestrian traffic, the kind of the area itself, and get a feel for it before we investigate. And normally we try to meet the owner or the manager or whoever is kind of allowing us that investigation. We try to meet them at that location. Sometimes they can show us they can kind of recite some of the things, some of the experiences they've had, and show us exactly where. So that once again helps us for equipment selection. The main stage for us is the investigation, and we will probably be covering this for the majority of this this session. How do you carry out an investigation? How do you nominate a lead? What is base camp? What is baseline testing and things like that, which we'll cover. Stages 4 and 5, it's just really the kind of the evidence review, which is absolutely crucial. You get access to this investigation or access to this location to carry out the investigation, and the evidence review is key. What have you found? What have you identified? And this also feeds back into future investigations for equipment placement, and etc. And then the last stage for us is that feedback to the client. Some clients choose not to have feedback. Some prefer it. So what we'd like to do is to take you through the 5 different stages, but probably starting with stage 1 is how do you find and secure a location. And I think, I'll probably hand you over to Carrie. Carrie is absolutely phenomenal at getting Pulse locations. I don't know, Carrie, in terms of the viewers, Carrie, do you want to mention some of the successes you've had and how you can, how does it work for us?
Well, one thing is I always tell the team, always look for locations. If there's a place that looks interesting or you've heard something, write it down, try to get a contact, or if not, just give it to me. And in that case, if I'm contacting a place, in that case, it's a lot of, hi, Robert, a lot of preparation. We have forms that specifically say who we are, what we do, what sets us apart from others. And a lot of times you got to go in with that and tell them, yes, we hold strict confidentiality. We don't post anything, all this. And then it goes either way. They'll say, sure, come on in. We go meet them, talk to them in person, show them what we're going to do. Some we include on an investigation for a little bit, and they're good. Give us keys, return it over the weekend. Others who call us, it's just sitting and answering their questions and so forth. And again, you really got to listen, and just a lot of times they'll call saying they don't know things, and we'll research it and give it back to them and say it's theirs. And sometimes they'll say, well, great, can you come along and investigate? Other times they'll say, we'll get back to you. It's just, I don't know, I guess it's just going, meeting people. And I really, honest to God, think it falls on the fact that the whole team has built a great reputation. And that's what gets us into a lot of places. It's the reputation alone.
Yeah, actually, that's quite key, Carrie, because one of the things we just through word of mouth, we've been able to secure a lot of locations just through having been respectful, having good protocols. In terms of if you're trying to secure a location, there's email is, I mean, it's quick, but it's not as personal. And I know some groups spam a lot of sites with just a quick email thread. We find the phone call or the visit, and I know Carrie actually visits the location to kind of build up a relationship and a rapport with the individuals there, whether it's a manageress or whatever. I think we have had a lot of success like that. One of the things that we used to do in the UK is we used to attach our charter, our mission statement, our investigation protocols. And I know that does really, you kind of portray a level of professionalism in this hobby, I'll say. And we and Pulse have a kind of the Bible, where that is how we, how we, it's the group's ethics, protocols, and how we act with maximum respect in an investigation or during an investigation. So I think the question to Cordell first and then Carrie is, how important is that historical aspect of that location?
Well, in my opinion, it's really critical to understand the history is to understand the living part of that building, and anything you capture, any experience you have can, and sometimes I should say, be tied back to a historical event, historical people that lived there. But history, one, it's just fascinating, right? You're at a location that's 150 years old. To understand the lives that progress through that location and understand the events, because really, it's like, and I want to add this to it, and because every location has myths, rumors, stories, and sometimes they're based in some form of truth, but you'll find that most of what the story is literally myth. It never really happened. I can't tell you how many times, guys, we've gone into a location and the story is, oh yeah, there was a murder up here, and historically there was never a murder. And that's why history, so because if you rely just on the word of mouth and the stories, you'll probably go, it's likely you might be going down the wrong path, and you might and and that can influence what you believe you've captured or why something happens on an investigation. You go, well, oh yeah, that, somebody's angry up there. Well, yeah, they were murdered. That's the story. And historically it never happened. So history is so important in so many ways. And the last thing I'll say, but it's also just really cool. I love history. It's just fantastic. It's if you want to know why we do what we do and why things are the way they are, all you got to do is like look at history. It has all the answers. Carrie, go ahead.
For me, it's a two-part type of thing. Yes, history is important. Facts are important. I usually like to have a team member assign them a history research. Janie's good at it. Marissa's good at it. I like kind of going in with a blank slate, just so it's just, I don't want to have these preconceived notions of what is or what could be. And then after the first one, then I start digging more into the history. So we've always got somebody who's doing the history research. You just can't go into one source because there are mistakes throughout history. So if you find that a place was a Chinese laundry shop or something like that, go verify that, because there's times that it's not the same location or the same place, same stores. So information can actually be off simply by another building next to it. But yeah, we use state archives. I mean, I've got pages and pages of archives that we can use, down to Sanborn maps, to everything. And in the case of a Sanborn map, when we were digging up histories, I had got the Sanborn maps for Wyoming, and I found that in this one spot there was a prison. It states right there on the Sanborn map that there was a prison, and the city didn't know it. And it wasn't until we went back into the Sanborn maps and said, well, here it is. So, but when you're with clients, respect, do ask them everything they know. If they have history, a lot of times, if it's a historic building or whatever, they'll have a historian or something, and they'll be more than happy to give you what they have. But yes, Cordell's right too. Don't take word of mouth as solid. Go back
I think,
to research.
yeah, I think it's a fine balance, isn't it? And I mean, the kind of viewers, it's really depends on personal preference. Do you, if you have secured a location, do you then look through newspapers or any media type? Do you floor plans, maps, etc.? Do you try to get as much as possible before you go in, or do you want to, you just aren't sure how that plays on certain biases and things? I think I'm the same as Carrie. I like to go in first and then really start gathering the data after the first investigation, just so to see if there's any correlation and for things which we obviously haven't got any biases going in with. But I suppose it is a kind of a personal preference, really. I know one of the things I do is whenever I create a directory for the investigation, I do have an information folder, and I dump in anything I can, street maps, Google View, Street View, anything. Just dump everything in as much as I can. But in terms of experiences and things, I mean, yeah, if we were meeting the clients at the location, then we do kind of interview, and obviously you must ask if there is any if people don't mind being videoed or photographs being taken, etc. Obviously that's just common courtesy. But I think we have getting floor plans from clients, which has been really helpful in allowing us to prepare, in terms of that investigation piece. So I think finding securing the location, just to kind of wrap that piece up.
Real quick, Dave,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. We have someone who will dig up history and articles and so forth. But when you meet with that initial client, include them. Tell them join you on the investigation or go through the walkthroughs with you, and they'll give you a lot of information to work with, a lot of key words or key events to research. So it's vital to include them, get their information. And sometimes we'll come back and say, well, you were close, but your story's off a little bit. Here's the actual event or that, and they're thrilled. So you got to work with your client and assign someone to research. If we've been in there several times and we're experiencing things, then yeah, start trying to tie those events, those evident clips or whatever to.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cordell. Yeah. Cordell, you're on mute.
It's himself.
Best, like I say every time, best place for him.
Oh,
Yeah, that's because he's like me.
I just feel,
Talk.
I feel the love. It's just overwhelming. It just washes over me. No, so for the audience out there, Dave, so you can't find any Sanborn maps. There's no maps. What do you do at that point?
What we do is if we can't find anything, sometimes that's a good thing, because you haven't got any, you can't preempt anything. You can't, it's, we go in, I mean, really that's part of stage 2. But we go in, as a good lead-in code out to stage 2, we would measure, we would create floor plans as part of that initial kind of reconnaissance piece, which is a good lead-in to that stage. So stage 2 is the kind of that initial visit. Excuse me. It's, you've got the location, and now what do? Well, we have a preference to meet the client at the location, and that's just so we can kind of explain to the client exactly what we're going to do on the investigation. You make them feel part of the team, and a number of clients have actually joined that first investigation with us. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to then carry out what we call a kind of a risk assessment. At times we drive just outside the area, and we'll just sit and watch and listen. And you get a feel for the amount of noise, the traffic. I mean, we've been in some locations where there's a kind of a dance hall, and there's dancing and singing till the odd time, which interferes with the audio. There's one location which just opposite was a kind of a venue for weddings and things. So it was, but you get a feel for the area, obviously before you kind of visit that location itself. And I think we've had a lot of success like that. We have identified key times to investigate. Sometimes a daytime investigation might even be better. And so once we get access into the area, please just dive in.
Dave, you're right. When we don't have a lot of information on a location and that, there are places that you can go to try to find like historical architect mapping and stuff like that. I have the gift of gab. I'm not afraid to talk to people. But a lot of times you can get a hold of like the state, Utah State or whatever colleges around, and they've got professors of archaeology or architect, and you can contact them and describe where you're at. And there have been cases where they can go back and say, oh, yes, this guy built this building. And it gives you enough information that you can go off of that to start building a case for the location. Even asking the colleges and that, do you have maps, old maps to going back into the fire department back in the 1800s, right, start mapping locations. And a lot of times if you go in and you talk to these people, respectfully tell them what you're looking for, and that you can get those key words that will open a door for you. So
yeah, I think that's absolutely key. Actually, I'm getting feedback. Got my headphones in. Oh, done? Yeah, sorry, technical problems there from somebody. I think so you've got an investigation. You now kind of need to meet the client at that investigation, if preferable. Sometimes you don't always. You just kind of get an investigation. You kind of pick up the keys or whatever and investigate. But we like to have that pre-investigation, we call it, that stage 2. And it's a good opportunity as well to carry out what we call a risk assessment, and that's predominantly a safety risk assessment. So when we do arrive at the location, and we do have some very basic levels of equipment, you always go in with an audio recorder, always. You always and you obviously make sure that the client is comfortable with you recording that. But we've found that in a lot of investigations, even just entering a property, that is when, for some reason, you get a high level of activity and response. I mean, we've had people saying hello, who are you, etc. Carrie, go ahead. Yep.
Oh no, I just, because you were talking about the risk assessment and all that, and I just want to say real quick is we don't trespass. Number one, no trespassing. Risk assessment, you might have a great building in front of you, but if there's signs that say do not trespass, danger, we go places where there's actually live mines, or we're working around mines and all that. So you really watch the signs, follow the signs. They're there for a reason. And if they tell you do not enter, don't enter, but try to get a hold of the owner and see if you can go that way.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to add one thing, and this is for the audience. Again, this is what we try to do. And does all this fit into every location we do? No. What we're describing here, what Dave and Carrie are describing, are you have locations like Carrie just said, that there's mines, and there's mine shafts and stuff, and never trespass. If you enter a brand new building that was built 10 years ago, some of this might not apply necessarily.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to, because if I'm a 25-year-old out here listening to this, he might go, well, this seems like a lot of work. I just want to go and investigate. Why is this important? And again, that's up to each individual group and members of that group to decide what's important for them. And I wanted to add that for the audience, remember, this is based on what does investigating mean to you. If you're just there to go have a good time for 7 hours and get scared, then this isn't for you. You're not gonna want to do any of this. But if you're serious about it, this is some of the stuff we recommend. Will it fit into every group? No. So I just wanted to say that just for the audience. So go ahead, guys.
It entails work.
Yeah, I'm not going
to. Oh, sorry, we're lagging real quick. It entails work, and I do a lot of the contacting and that. And through this, we develop a friendship with the clients, and then they're passing your information on to other people and that. But sometimes you have to do all this work before you can get in. And sometimes it can take a couple months of going in front of city councils and that. But once you get it and you prove what you do and bring everything you bring to the table, you're pretty much good. And it's just going to start opening. And
you're right, Carrie. And I think the importance of kind of our kind of stage 2, what we'll call it, or that pre-investigation piece, is it allows us to, we do walk the area. We do. And you're right. I mean, there's different risks, different locations, old properties. You've got asbestos, probably poor flooring. Is it structurally sound? So you try to compile a list as you're walking around. We do have a pro forma, and what we take the opportunity at this stage is also to map it. We take as many photographs as we can, and there are some pretty cool 360 apps on phones and things where you can get a view of the room, and each room and each location. And we do usually leave the building with a good view as to where we're going to have base camp. And our base camp we'll cover base camp in the next section. Base camp is crucial. It's absolutely key, I think. So I think that's what the questions for. I'll start with Cordell. How important, Cordell, is this stage? with respect to selecting the right equipment to take?
Well, for me, this is critical because there's so many things to consider, Dave. So you go into a concert hall, say, or a theater, this massive place, and so the building has 3 levels, and 60% of the building is one massive room. So how do you cover that? Do you and that's your period when you do the walkthrough, going, well, gosh, if we set up, we can't use camcorders in here because we don't have bright enough IRs to even cover it. They only go out 20 feet. We need a CCTV camera system. We need to bring our CCTV in here that we can go out 150, 200 feet with IR. And it's also understanding the layout, the floor is, and like, if you have a room, where are you going to put the audio? Is there a place to put the audio? Are you going to have to bring in some other types of equipment? And so I think that's critical. And now some investigators, Dave and Carrie, will go in and you get a feeling for a room, going, oh, well, I'm definitely going to put an audio in here. And that's also critical because and I'm not saying one thing or another here, but that sometimes when you get a feel like, oh, I need to put an audio here, or it turns out to be a pretty good assumption. It seems to work out a lot of times. But anyway, that's my view of it. You got to know your equipment and what your equipment's capable of based on room size. Echo is the building echoey? Is there you don't want to put an audio next to a furnace, right? It's going to be totally, in its wintertime, the furnace is going to be kicking on every 10 minutes. It's going to be unusable. So that's why you do that. Anyway, I'm done. Go ahead, Carrie.
Real quick, with mapping out rooms, you can't do the phone mapping and that. I've done this. You've got grid paper at home. Do your best to draw out the rooms on the grid paper. It doesn't have to be perfect with measurements, but draw out, and it's mark on those where you noticed vents, air vents. Mark them in a different color to mark where the windows are, doors, hallways that cross each other because of airflow. Just mark your little map down with everything. And like Cordell says, it's important as to where you put equipment. If there's reports of apparitions being seen in the furnace room and the furnace is running all the time, okay, well, maybe you need to put a couple audios in there going different directions, but back it with a video. So it's important to find out where all contamination, all airflow, even down to speakers, and there's static or radio coming through, and just mapping all that out makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We have been in some locations. I mean, especially basements are kind of in bars and things, they're cellars. For some reason, those things are so high in EMF and noise that it's just impossible to record. And that's where the majority of activity is sometimes reported. And it's a nightmare trying to listen to audio when you can just hear this drumming all the time,
So we've been able to debunk a lot of things too by doing this mapping and noting these things. So,
well, I mean, you're right, Karen. I think it's so important because, well, it's so important for me because, when you have like thousands of hours of audio and video for each location, you may not get around to reviewing it straight away, and it's always good to have some details. And we'll probably cover this more in the investigation for equipment placement, but we always photograph where we put a device. We photograph the direction it's facing. We we gather as much data as we can for to help us during the review process, because we may not get a chance to review this for a couple of weeks, or more. So absolutely agree, Carrie. If you can draw, if you can't get floor plans and you can draw them, great. But
Perfect.
sorry, what's that?
You don't have to be perfect, and
No.
draw yourself a little peeping, like the red lines are windows, and it's a great way, and then you back them up with the pictures. But the one thing I do say you got to know, it's important, is know your entrances and know your exits, because there's some places, if I think it would catch on fire, it would go up really fast. So you got to know your entrances and exits.
Carrie, that's a great part of the risk assessment. It's like any kind of hotel safety. If you're staying at a hotel, you always know where the exits are. You always know where the emergency exit is in the event of. And I think that's a good point. As part of that risk assessment, safety is priority. The safety of yourself and your team is absolutely paramount. Oh yeah, you check for.
There's been times that you guys
through. You check for wildlife, dogs, rats, pigeons. I mean, how many times has a pigeon flown at our face, or a bat?
Skunk died in the basement.
Bats, guys.
Bats. I hate bats.
Bats.
I mean,
the other thing is too, and I think especially true for female investigators, if we've got a new location and it's not in the best area, or it's kind of a beat up place, don't do as I do, but go with somebody, partner up with somebody, preferably with one of the guys, because I've run into situations where I have run into fleshies, and it's terrifying, or situations where we've heard what we thought were fleshies. And I remember the one time I'm like, there was a fleshy in Cordell's, and you got your metal piece. We're walking through.
I knew you'd bring that up.
Yeah, but no, seriously.
That tiny piece of wood that's all I had.
But seriously,
that's all I could pick up, all I could find.
I go off on my own, and I know it's stupid, but pair with somebody, because you don't know who you might run into, or just get in trouble from flooring or something. So definitely have a buddy.
Karen, I think that's probably a good lead in.
Don't practice.
I think that's a good lead into the investigation piece. Like when the location's been secured, we've been for a kind of a recce or a reconnaissance or a we've got as much of our safety risk assessment completed. We've got a good idea of where we're going to put base camp, a good idea of equipment. That's probably quite a successful stage, and so then we are all ready. It's investigation night, and we're all looking forward to it. I think you're right, Carrie. The first thing we do is send Cordell in. No. The first thing we do for any investigation, as soon as we arrive, obviously, always have your audio recording as you go in, and video if possible. But we do then immediately carry out that tour around the area, making things safe. But we also look for what we call fleshies. Some of the locations do get prone to have people kind of residing there who shouldn't be, we'll say. Or there could be dogs, cats, everything. I mean, we've probably had all sorts of animals and things. Cordell, yep. Go ahead, bud.
When you're done, I want to say something.
No, and it brings up an interesting topic, which is different depending on what country you live in, or even different regions of a country. So I was just going to throw this out to you, Dave. Dave, do you recommend that members of a team. So if you're going into an area, say it's an unoccupied building, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you're, like you just said, looking for fleshies. Do you recommend paranormal groups arm themselves or have weapons? No, I'm serious, because it's an interesting, because it's different based on country or even regions within a country. Or is
Well,
it
I
just
picked up that little stick because that's all we've got, you know. We haven't got any firearms. No, I think I would hate to kind of to put the fear in people and say arm yourselves. But I would just say be prepared and just be cautious. One thing that we do is we always notify the authorities before the investigation. So, for example, we'll notify the local kind of city or town police force and let them know that we are going to be investigating from this time till this time. That's really good practice. It prevents us being held up at gunpoint, as we have a number of occasions. But I think it is really good, an essential part of our procedures to notify the authorities before we actually arrive and carry out an investigation. Cordell, that's a tough one. I know we've been to some really dodgy places in the States. And I know you guys always come armed.
Well, I asked it because it's reality. Here in the States, a lot of people will carry a sidearm or something like that, and but I think it's a touchy thing. I mean, my short answer is, I think it would be determined by your group. If your group says yes, it's okay to do that as a consensus, then, because you do get into some shady areas. Sometimes you're investigating in an occupied building that everybody's gone home, but the area is really shady. If you got a crack house across the street and it's 2 in the morning, you better, maybe you should. I don't know. But anyway, I just want to throw that. Carrie has something.
Here's my answer really quick. Well, let me say something about each time you go into an investigation, checking out the area. We have been given basically the privilege of some buildings that when we go through, we know like the back of our hands. And if we see something out of place, we'll tell the owner. And we're the ones that find these changes and that, because we're the only ones that are allowed in there. So we're kind of, in some ways, working for the client. And that's helpful. With Cordell's topic and that, I carry when I'm out. And part of it is because it's not only what's inside, it's what's outside. And I've had occasions where I myself have been out looking for locations, and I've had a couple times. One time, the building was awesome. The guy started talking to me, and he kept saying, come on in, come on in. And I was going to go in, but then he grabbed my arm to take me in, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to lose this location. It was really hard, but if you're looking for the locations, don't put yourself in danger to secure one. But, even coming and going, we've run into situation. Cordell, we came just coming back from an investigation, because I think once you meet, your investigation starts. You're with your team, you're going to protect them. We've had situations where we run into a druggie high. I don't know what he was high on, threatening us, and are going into buildings and running into junkies that will purposely separate you. And so I carry now, but I also carry because we have other females on the team and we have locations that you're out there. So I do carry.
Yeah, and I didn't want to sidetrack this whole topic, but I think it's an important one.
It is,
And
yeah.
it's a different question for Dave, you in the UK, and Pulse in the UK. It's a different kind of talking point. And for here in the States, it's a deadly talking point because we have the option to carry. And if as soon as you carry, you have to decide I might have to use this and
We
I
have
can't hesitate.
permits, though.
Yes. And so I wanted to bring it up because I think it's something that is always thought about and is talked about in teams. Um, the
No,
the one thing the one thing I wanted to mention was, and Carrie and Dave know this, we've actually stopped people from breaking into a location we were in. Um, and I won't go into the details. It was actually funnier than crap because we made a person fall 2 stories, and maybe that isn't funny, but they were trying to break in. And but so I wanted, because Carrie touched on that, and that we actually are if you're trustworthy and you do all the right stuff, you can actually prevent bad things from happening for the owner, because we've actually literally stopped in the middle of somebody trying to break into a place, which is scary. What do you do in that case, and do you call the police? I mean, there's all kinds of questions it raises. But guys, and I'm sorry, because I feel like I've kind of sidetracked this a little bit.
No, Cordell, I think it's important. I mean, I used to always get worried in case you guys got possessed. I would get shot.
no, it's just
It's one of the
basically
things I used to look for.
it's basically going through the walkthrough once the area is clear, or places out in the desert that we're sprawled out everywhere and there's no phone services or anything. So it's, with the buildings, I put mine away once it's clear. But so just know who has the ability to help protect your team. Who on your team, just stay together. It really does.
And Dave,
What's that? So
I was just gonna say, though, that whole topic, though, the reason I brought it up is because what you, as the director of Pulse UK, how do you confront that situation? So you're going out someplace that you don't, there's nobody around for miles, and there's 4 of you there, and you're going into a building that you have permission, but it's abandoned. How do you handle security?
You know what? It depends on the location, Cordell. We don't normally have that issue. I mean, a lot of the investigations in the States used to be like Friday or Saturday nights, and kind of in cities which had bars just along the way. So I think I've probably, it's rare to bump into anyone in the UK. If you're investigating a castle or something like that, it is rare to, because these locations aren't always like in the center of a city. So someone really, someone really would have to want to be there. Yeah, we've never really had that issue. But I think we always announce ourselves. We always go through the area announcing ourselves for that initial sweep. And then once we know that the area is secure, we would then begin the investigation. We do, and it actually probably gets us onto probably next topic. But I think just to close it off, Cordell, yeah, we don't really have that issue. Was that, sorry, Carrie?
I just want to add one thing real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this has happened to us more towards females. Well, it's happened to me. When you get a location and you go and you're meeting the client for the first time, and that client all of a sudden gets really wonky. You know who I'm talking about. And then other people start coming in, and you're investigating, and you've got people that you didn't know were going to be there all of a sudden showing up. And for the females, beware, because there have been times where it's basically one of those men can be kind of like a predator type thing. So again, you know, if something's not right, speak about it, because no investigation's worth anybody going through anything or being scared or that. So yeah, just have trust and tell, and don't think, keeping your mouth shut, you're doing the team good. It's just precautions. And not every client is a good person. So
yeah, Carrie. I mean, yeah,
it's just a lot.
you're absolutely right. It's we just have to apply caution and common sense. You know, it is, and you can soon get a feel for people, can't you? You can soon get a vibe if they seem like genuine, decent people or not. You know, I mean, one thing to watch out for the viewers as well is that some, in this kind of reality TV world we live in, some of some locations and clients are now wise to the financial value of somewhere that is kind of presumed to be haunted. And I think it's just to kind of be on your guard for that. I mean, I'm not sure if it's happened to us much in the US when we were investigating the US. It hasn't happened really in the UK, but I know it could happen. There's nothing better for business than a haunted cafe, for example, or something like that. A haunted hotel. So just kind of be on your guard for that as well. So I think the next kind of topic under the investigation piece was, and this is a crucial role, is the investigation lead. So I'm going to ask the question. I'll ask the question to Cordell first because he's sitting there quiet. How do you select the investigation lead, Cordell? And why is that so important?
Well, technically on paper, the investigation lead is just that. They should lead the investigation. They should make sure that all the protocols are carried out, safety. They also design, and for lack of a better term, design the investigation and implement that design. So they would be like, go, hey, Carrie and Dave, I want you guys to go up to this room, spend 15, 20 minutes, do an EVP session. But also he's in charge of the safety stuff. Now in Pulse, what we'll do is we train people. Eventually everybody on the team will get an opportunity to be a lead for their training aspects. But lead also is, hey, can we get a camcorder down this hallway? I'd like to have one down. And now, having said all that, the lead is also not a dictator necessarily. We have room for everybody. If I tell Dave, hey, Dave, put a camcorder down this hallway, most likely Dave's going to, oh, yeah, sure, okay. But if Dave goes, I only got one left and I really want to get this other room, we talk about it and go, yeah, go get that. Yeah, go put that up in the other room. Maybe later on we'll move it down to the hallway I mentioned. That's the way it should work. But the lead really controls the investigation, or attempts to, depending on who's there and what's occurring. In charge of safety, making sure somebody's at base camp, registering all this stuff that's going on. If you got a high condenser mic run, if you got CCTV cameras, if you don't have all of that. Also, if things, because say you got 8 people on an investigation and a 10,000 square foot building, you really need somebody to control that environment.
Yeah.
Because it can get really out of hand and contaminate. And what you end up at the end of the night, if somebody isn't controlling it, a lot of contamination on all the audio and everything. You really need that person that just, I look at the lead as a supervisor, not necessarily dictating, but trying to make sure everything runs smoothly and people aren't walking on each other, and that Dave and Carrie don't set up a camcorder um, facing each other down the same hallway and blinding each other's camera and things like that. So, all right, I'm going to shut up, and that's my take.
No, everything you said is
Yeah, good points.
perfect. We will take an investigator sometime and tell them, you're the lead on this investigation. And it's basically a teaching tool. We want them to have the ability to speak up and know where to put things, or notice things that aren't safe, or just different layouts in that. And like you said, even if, and then there's times we'll do this is, let's put a video in here, and it's not a good spot for one reason or another, but you're waiting for the lead investigator to be able to tell Cordell, you or I, no, I don't think so. It's basically, it is teaching them, but it's also being the ability to talk to the three of us, or to have the ability to control the situations, the team. Even at parts where a lead investigator, as Cordell said, with a lot of people, there's times you have to tell someone you need to go sit at base camp, or for one reason or another, they've got to have that ability to make those calls. They also have to have the ability to when to call an investigation, or when to put an area off limits for safety or whatever, and even down to teammates not being compatible, which we don't have, but it's just all these decisions that they have to make. And I think we do it too, is we want them to have that confidence to do it. So when they're saying, I'll often say, don't go do it. Just go do it. Tell them what you're going to do. If you don't like it, tell them. So it's just giving them a voice to be able to lead and that. And
yeah, these are all great points. It's I'll look at the investigation lead as kind of someone who can maximize the use of the resources. That's the people, or the investigators and the equipment, for to really optimize that investigation and get as much data and kind of as to cover as much of that area as possible.
Talk. The safety speech that we give at the beginning of every investigation, I'll have them say it. And they're like, but you say it, or Cordell says it. And I'm like, you're going to say it. You should know this. You should say it. So, yeah, it's just, it helps us too. Then we're able to focus on other things. But some people don't want to be lead too, so we don't force them.
Karen, you mentioned a great point there. That team talk, the initial kind of safety talk, team talk. Where the investigation lead goes through the risk assessment at the start, telling everyone exactly what to watch out for. One of the good practices to adopt is to kind of cover your leads, either cover them or kind of get them tucked out of the way to prevent a tripping hazard. A lot of different things like that we are in our risk assessment, and we discuss that. Any locational quirks, what the investigation plan is.
Given the speech to
the team,
guests.
Yeah, the team talk is absolutely crucial, and we do kind of nominate and notify the investigation lead prior to the investigation. Just so they can really hit the ground running when they arrive at the scene, at the location.
Nobody gets in trouble for making a mistake or being unsure. That's why we're wanting them to do it.
Yeah, and it's great training, huh?
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. It's even talking with the clients. I will have them, you need to talk. I know I'm there to listen but you need to talk with the client and that. So it's all good things.
Yeah, and I think it also helps you being a team member if you've been an investigation lead, because you understand what's needed. And I think really, investigating with Pulse, everyone pretty much, I mean, how many times have we just gone into an investigation and just got cracking? Everyone knows their role. Everyone, you kind of automatically start putting the video, audio. I mean, it's. I think we probably had it down to a T, because I think we had been working with each other for so long. We knew exactly what everyone was going to do, and I think we really could begin that investigation fairly quickly, and even during the teardown at the end, it was always very efficient. So I think a lot of groups out there, who do investigate together a lot, will get like that, where it's just second nature.
That's why we bump people up to lead investigators, and the lead investigator under us should be able to carry out all these duties. And Chris is doing a good job. James doing a good job. So it's just a good way to cover all bases and have the time to investigate and just learn.
Yeah, and I just want to, there's two things I got to add. And one is the lead investigator on Pulse should be able to go on the investigation. And Carrie already summed it up, but be the sole go-to person for that investigation to answer any and all questions and just take over. And now, the other thing I need to mention is we got 28 minutes left. We're not even halfway through this, so we're gonna have to step it up a little bit, guys. So just
Coriel, on that note, let us discuss this thing called base camp. I mean, do you want to start, Coriel? What is a base camp, and what is it used for, and how important is it?
Well, the first thing I have to say about base camp is selecting a base camp, right? What does that mean, selecting a base camp? It should be as isolated as you can make it, meaning hopefully you can have some doors closed between the areas you're investigating and base camp. Base camp is where everybody goes and eats all the great junk food that we bring on investigations, because we're all so healthy. We eat fresh vegetables every investigation, right, guys? No, but the base camp is the hub. It's where you store all your equipment. It's where everybody sits when they're not investigating. It's where you have your CCTV cameras, your high-end audio, where you're monitoring locations, and it's the hub of where everything occurs. And because of time, I will turn it back over to Dave, and Dave can ask Carrie the same question.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into that either, because you guys, but I just do want to say something that I think is also critical. If with every investigation, every base camp, you should have a medical first aid kit with you. In our case, we have a first aid kit that has Band-Aids, Tylenol, all that stuff. But then we also have CPR manual and stuff like that if someone were to get hurt. I bring it all the time. It's a go-to that every team should have something like that. Keep it at base camp, and you know where it's at, and you can get to it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a base camp is an opportunity for to have that. I'm not going to say that safe zone, but it is kind of a neutral zone, or somewhere where an investigator I mean, sometimes in the investigations in winter, it's freezing, and we send people down to get warm. So we do have heaters, and in any location, we never have any naked flames. We do have kind of electric heaters, and we do monitor those continuously, because the risk of fire, we are very conscious of that. So I think a base camp for me is somewhere where the kind of, and we always keep base camp manned continuously with an individual with a radio who will monitor all of the monitors from the DVR that we've set up. And sometimes that's the investigation lead, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the investigation lead is in a group and coordinating things in the field.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think, and in terms of the base camp, I mean, sometimes, and I know we've discussed it in a previous investigation, previous kind of YouTube podcast thing that we're doing, is that when someone does see something, or someone has an experience, different people respond in different ways depending upon what they see. Cordell ended up dancing like Michael Jackson once, because I think someone crept up on him from behind. So I think we had to send you down to base camp for the cool down there. Yeah, we're mute. I knew you were. Can you remember that? Well, we did the Michael Jackson twirl.
It wasn't. It was a slight pirouette, and I would call it more of a Renaissance 1600s. 1600s, 1700s European pirouette is what I would call it, Dave.
Dave, you said something that is right on. Base camp should be a place where investigators can come back, discuss something that they saw, something that is happening without even other investigators hearing it, so they're not automatically expecting these things to happen. It's a place where people who are nervous, not feeling right, to come down. It's a safe zone. We carry notes. It's write down what happened and why, but while we're listening, someone's always writing down timestamps, what was heard, what happened. So base camp is the heart of it all, and it's the safe zone. It's the here's what's happening. How many times are we at base camp and we're plotting like, let's try this, and so it's the
you're right, Carrie. It's a great place to regroup, and as Cordell mentioned, it is an opportunity for the we have hot drinks, but it has to be as far away as you can from the kind of we'll say the zones that are being monitored with audio and video, because you don't want to pick up any sound from base camp. But I think we have had a lot of success with our base camps. We do have an investigator's log, and that log is time stamped. So anything which is seen or heard, we timestamp it, because then we can refer to that in our equipment, which we timestamp in the same way. So at the start of the investigation, we do kind of synchronize watches, if you like, so we are all in the same time.
It's a great
the same timeline. No, go ahead, Carrie. Go on.
It's a great way to pull the team back to base camp, let the area reset, and listen to the sounds. Just like leave the active areas alone, listen with the high condensed mic, reset, replan. So just miss Dave's tea.
Yeah, Yorkshire tea. Really, used to always bring 2 flasks of Yorkshire tea. It was lovely.
Yeah, so I mean,
And all the Flying J coffees we used to drink.
Cordell's Pizza.
Now, I suppose one thing to mention, I don't know if this is probably the right environment to mention it, is toilets. Always keep your Flying J coffee cups, if need be. But no, I mean, you do have to also be conscious of toiletry facilities. for investigators as well. And we do kind of create our own toilet facility.
Us girls have pulse potty.
Yeah, we do have chemical toilets and things, so it's always crucial that we have to take care of all the basic needs of the investigation team, we'll say.
Yeah.
So I suppose that gets on, we haven't mentioned baseline tests, and just I'm conscious of time, just very quickly.
I think Cordell, real quick, Cordell's trying to pipe something in.
Sorry, Cordell, just go ahead.
No. I was just going to do what you already did, Dave. We got 19 minutes left.
Yeah,
know where your electrical outlets, all that crap is too.
Yeah. It's but very quickly, baseline testing. The first time you're in the location, you go around, you measure as much as you can to get a kind of what we call a baseline of the environment. AMF, you record all your power outlets and things like that, and we can discuss that at a later kind of video, a later session. I think what we wanted to get into was equipment selection, and I think probably for the last 19 minutes or so, equipment selection is key. As Cordell previously mentioned, you go there for the kind of the pre-investigation or the location visit, and you get a good feel for what you're going to bring. There's nothing worse than going for an investigation for the first time, and you pack the car with everything you own, like we did for Virginia City on numerous occasions, across in Nevada, because it was a bit too far to go for a pre-location visit. So I think the equipment selection is key. And I'm going to start with Cordell again in terms of that. How important is equipment selection? How important is equipment placement? And is there anything that Pulse does, which helps us during the evidence review, etc., for these investigations?
Well, I'll take the last part first, because I think it's the collaboration, how we talk to each other about because whether it's Carrie or me or you, Dave, we always have in the past has said, hey, Carrie will come to me and say, hey, where do you think I should put this camcorder? And we'll talk about it, and then Carrie will go, well, I was thinking over here because last time, blah, 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 something like that. And so collaboration, being able to talk to each other. And the key factor, guys, is understanding your equipment. If you don't understand really your equipment, it doesn't matter where you put it, right? Second is you want to cover all with audio, you want to cover as much as you can without duplicating. Obviously, if you're in a small building, you'll have no issue. You can put audio and cover everything. But if you're in a large building, and we've been in this situation, guys, we've been in places in Idaho that might have been three buildings that were 25,000 square feet each. Even with our massive amount of equipment that we have, we can't cover it all. So you have, again, collaboration. You have to talk and go, okay, tonight, what's important to Carrie? What's important to Dave? What's important to the team? Where do we want to hit? And that's what you have to do. Also, you have to decide on, and I just want to throw this in because say Dave and Carrie puts out 20 audio recorders. Well, that's all fine and good, but can you get to them all? If they all have 10 hours of recording on them, and that's why it's critical not to overlap in some cases, because you don't want to duplicate, especially with your own audio, that you got two audios that are going to pick up the same thing. Why Dave and Carrie also has an audio in there. You need to rely on the other person's audio for that duplicate and maybe a different direction instead of your own. That's, again, I think it comes down to collaborating, talking to, and that's where the team lead comes in.
Yeah.
And trying to coordinate where you put the audio. But you should always talk to each investigator. Carrie does it with me all the time. I do it with Carrie. When Dave was here, we used to talk all the time. Where should we put this? And that to me is the critical thing. Just don't go out there and let investigators randomly set things everywhere, because then nobody knows where everything's at and it causes chaos. I'm done.
A lot of times our first investigation, we always tell the clients we do a light investigation, and that's exactly what it is. Bring audio, video, and that, but you're not hauling every piece of equipment in. The light investigation is the time to access everything that we've just talked about. So there are situations, again, where you do have to haul it all in because you're only going to be there once or twice, or it's a fair distance. But if it's locally in that, we usually will tell we're going in light investigation, and then the next time haul it in.
Yeah, and I think.
Oh, I just wanted to add one thing, that because Carrie just hit on a very important point, Dave. If it's a brand new location, what I do, again, Carrie's absolutely right. We do what we call a light investigation. We'll use some video cameras, handheld cameras, and audio. I like to carry an audio with me on a new location. So I'll stop and start, do different sessions based on where I'm at in the building. That way, that one particular audio, when I listen to it, I go, okay, this is the one I was carrying. And I get a feel for each of the areas in that new location. So if we go back, then I can more finely tune where I want stuff based on what I capture. But go ahead.
We carry audio, but I usually carry a video camera around there.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, how many EVPs have we had? You know, I mean, I would always leave the recorder running while leaving the area, because the amount of EVPs where we've had people saying goodbye and what have you, which we probably miss if we had have finished the session, turned it off, and then kind of left the area. So audio's free. You know, it's a digital file. It's free. I always used to leave it running as much as possible. And I think one of the things which we do well is we always mark and announce. And I think that's probably something we've overlooked for this, because just short on time. But, you know, as investigators, we always kind of announce ourselves coming into an area. There's nothing worse, you know, when you're listening to audio and you think, oh, I've got footsteps, I've got someone's, you know, coughed, or if it's cold ale, someone's farted, you know, and I think it's always good, you know, if you announce yourself, just either say, okay, investigators here, or it's cold ale, or it's Carrie, you know, and I think that's really key, because it really helps us. Well, it helps us to basically filter out any of the kind of the real noises to what could be perceived as paranormal, and we also mark, and it's a common thing for investigation groups, and you're probably familiar with it, any of the viewers. But if say we do, we're in a location, we have an audio device, or we have some fixed audio, because we do place a lot of fixed audio in locations while carrying. You know, if we do see or hear something, we mark it, and we will say, okay, mark that this time this occurred. So when you're listening to your recorders in the future, you can actually hear that mark, and you can correlate it if you did pick up anything or not. You know, I think that's a key point. But there's also something else which I wanted to mention, and we had success with it. And it's, you know, like, we created what you call an equipment log. And there's nothing worse than packing up at the end of the night, and you're an audio recorder short, and you've placed 12 in 30 buildings, and you just don't know where the heck it is. Or if one of the investigators takes ill, you need to know where they've put their equipment, you know, for to collect it. Or if it starts to snow heavily, as it has many times, and we decide to pack up quickly. So I think this equipment log is key, where you would put the kind of the equipment ID, and all of our ID has a kind of a reference number, which is kind of based on GC036. I call this one. And
sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Carrie, and so in this equipment log, you just put GC036 audio recorder placed in this location, and it helps you at the end of the night, depending upon the size of the location, of course, as to where you've kind of put equipment. I think that's quite key as well. Anyways, I'm conscious I've been talking a lot, so
no, real quick for me.
Carrie, over to you.
Another thing is, for me, when someone moves a piece of equipment or turns it,
Yeah.
I always like whoever's doing it, like say it's Carrie, timestamp it, what direction did you move it, or where did you move it? Because if there's nothing like going in, something's moved and you're going around, did you move this? Did you move this? So anytime there's any type of change in the environment that you're doing, you need to note it and timestamp it. Just real quick, and Cordell, you can talk about this on another night, because I think this is something that's really, with the equipment, I left the camera there, got some good EVPs, but the equipment, logging those and that, Cordell's got this great program that when we capture evidence in our reports, we have to put the piece of equipment and its ID number into the evidence and all. It's just a good, clean way of keeping track of stuff.
Yeah, and I do want to. So 2 comments. One for Dave. No, Dave, I never have had gastrointestinal issues on an investigation. In Utah, we have the well-known barking spider. That's what you've picked up. So I just wanted to mention that.
Evil in here, I smell it.
There must be lots of spiders. That's all I can say.
There is the barking spider. It can be pretty bad around here in the state of Utah. Second is, yeah, we can go into the whole Pulse app on some. I can bring it up too, but there's a lot of reasons why we track everything, and so Carrie brings up a good point. I'm only going to take 30 seconds here. So we have an application that we literally track everything. And I know some investigators go, oh God, I got to put in 20 different things to add evidence. And there's a reason though for all those things. It's to be able to pull those up and correlate times and direction and location. Yeah. And so Carrie's inventory system on the app and Dave's inventory, they're separate. And I like to, and I think it's important to track equipment. One is what is used mostly, right? What are you using mostly? Second is what equipment, and I know this sounds a little strange, but what type of equipment is actually getting our best evidence? And so there's a lot of reasons to track your equipment on what it captured
too. So you want to make sure you have your piece of equipment and not somebody else's.
Yeah, and before we leave, maybe I'll bring up a page just to demonstrate, just show people what we're talking about. But go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, and now I've just been reading the comments there, and Bob mentioned a point, which is good torches, or in the US you might call them flashlights. But I think I always carry 2 or 3. There's nothing worse than one of them failing, and if you want to scream like a high pitched like Cordell normally does when he's in darkness, then always carry a kind of a backup torch. That's carry a backup flashlight.
Batteries.
Yeah, and one of the things in terms of colors, one of the things we do is we always try to get green. We try to avoid red light, and we always try, if we are going to have a different color light, it usually is green, a softer color. And you can see these things picked up through the different DVRs and that we have a lot easier. Cordell, do you want to say something there, bud? Or?
Well, bright lights will blind other people too.
So. Well, I wanted to point out Carrie's lights keep
I'm
going.
ignoring it.
I know Carrie's lights keep going on and off.
I'm ignoring.
Yeah, is that? I thought.
Yeah, it's Carrie's lights are going off and on. No, those are all valid points, and we'll do a whole broadcast on equipment.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to emphasize that this is kind of how we try. Yeah, I see your lights going on.
Yeah.
Just came on. Now it'll go off.
No, ignoring.
I give it 10 seconds, it'll go off. Anyway, so again, this is something we do, and we don't implement this on all investigations. We base it on how many investigators are there, the size of the building, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you don't. So I wanted to let anybody that's thinking about starting their own paranormal group, I would put a list of stuff that you want to implement, but also realize that depending on the location, you're not going to maybe be able to use all those on a location. And it's not necessary that you do. If it was just me and Dave on an investigation, but just the two of us, we're not going to probably have an official base camp lead. It'll just be the two of us. That really has an impact when you start getting to 4, 5, 6 investigators or more. That's where the investigation lead really has an impact. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I think it really is based on, because if there's two of you, some of this won't apply, right? If you're investigating an outdoor area, it's some of this won't apply either. Anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that people understood, like, these aren't written in concrete and you got to do it every single time, every single one.
What I like is the three of us, when we're doing this, it's like we read each other's mind. It's a setup, and we're like, they will say one thing, I'll be another, and it's good. It's a go. It's quick. I mean, yeah, those are good times. Just walk in and we all each know. Planning before going in too. So don't waste, if you're on a time, waste the time, get in.
Shout out to Kimberly's post. Thank you, Kimberly. That's kind of what we wanted to show. And so again, if somebody's out there going, I love the paranormal, I want to create my own group, we want you to be able to look at this and watch this and get some ideas. Not that every single one of these you have to do to be a good investigator, but these are things you should think about and think about implementing a lot of these, because if you're truly serious, like I said at the beginning, guys, if all you're interested in is going into a dark building and having 4 hours and hopefully get scared or see something that freaks you out, this isn't for you, because you're not a serious investigator. And I'll just put it out there bluntly. You're just in for the moment. We're not here for the moment or that one experience. We're in this for the long haul. We take it seriously. This is what we try to do. Go ahead, Carrie.
Cordell's right. Being an investigator is not just that time that you're physically in a building investigating. Being an investigator is all the work prior to it. It's all the work after, all the reviewing, that's all crucial, because if you don't do what you have to do after investigations, then no, you're not really an investigator. You're a ghost hunter. But to investigate, it's a process, and it's not just while you're in a location. It's what takes place afterwards.
And Carrie and Dave, I just want to emphasize what Carrie just said, because we've said it many times. I hate the term ghost hunter. We don't hunt ghosts. We're not Wile E. Coyote hunting the roadrunner. That's not what we do. We investigate. We don't hunt.
We
We
don't
investigate.
or any of that stuff.
And Dave, so on these topics on stage 3, what else do you want to touch on?
Cordell, I'm just conscious of time. I
Well,
think
we can run over a few minutes. You know that. So
I think we've just scratched the surface. Really, that there is. I mean, we haven't covered kind of liability insurances and things that we've got as a team. But I think in terms of the viewers, we are just seen Bob's.
what did Bob say here?
Just seen Bob's note there, Bob. So.
Yeah, that's true, Bob. Hey, Bob, let me know when you get that second one.
I've been told I've got big ones, so.
No, I kid, Bob. Bob's great. Love you, Bob.
Yeah, but I think we scratched the surface, and if anyone wants any more information, feel free to get in touch or post, and we'll discuss it. This works for us, I mean, you don't have to follow it. Just get some ideas from it. But the one thing I can recommend is know where you put your equipment, because when it comes to the dead of night and you're trying to get your equipment, trying to remember where you placed it. It's always important.
Know how
yeah.
equipment. And if you don't know, then ask another person.
But I think if you can take anything away, first and foremost, it's safety. It's safety of the team. It's even with a hint of asbestos, we don't do it. You don't want that stuff on your clothes, and you don't want to take it home to your families. We just don't do it, and we don't urban explore. We don't trespass. It's always we always get in touch with the owner, the manager, what have you. We also notify the authorities. So really, you need to be very respectful, extremely respectful of anywhere where you do investigate.
And I want to emphasize that. They're very popular on YouTube. Oh, let's go to this we found this abandoned house, and or whatever, and we don't trespass. That's critical, and it's critical to the character of your team. It's critical to who you are as an individual. And if you want to ignore trespassing signs and private property, that's on you, and we don't condone it, nor do we do it. So
you'd
go
be
ahead.
kicked off the team if you went and did it.
Yeah,
I'd boot you faster than crap.
we take it seriously. And one other thing, Dave, I wanted to mention that's critical, and it's one of my pet peeves. If you go into a new location, I always tell all the team members, do not touch anything. And if you accidentally break something or knocks or whatever, immediately report it. Accidents do happen, but don't go through people's desk drawers. Don't go through their closets.
Don't tape things down.
The what?
Don't tape things down. And
Yeah.
don't leave trash behind. And don't eat their food. We had one investigator do that.
Yeah, and I think that's critical, and that again, it goes to the character of the team. It's also respect, and if you're taking this seriously, you got to have discipline. You can't have people picking up other people's personal items and all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Carrie.
I'm just going to sum something up real quick because I've got to go, but I can honestly say with Cordell, Dave, and team members that have come through. Going back to your question, Dave, is how do we get these locations? Yeah, I've put a lot of work in, but once that work is in, our reputation has carried us very, very far. And that's something I'm really proud to share with you guys, because it just goes to say, I'll introduce ourselves and they'll know us, or will be passed our name, that will be passed on to other businesses or owners. So reputation that we've built, and you guys have just been key to that. So I thank y'all for that. And
you have to go.
yeah, I got to go to a
Okay. Well, me and Dave will hang on for a few more minutes, but hey,
yeah.
Carrie, thank you very much. Great
Thanks,
info.
Corey.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking, Cordell, if you twos were armed, why did I have to go in for to investigate that fleshy with a stick the size of a matchstick?
Well, yeah,
Relaxed,
no, that tells you
expendable.
what a great general I am. You know, you you push that down to the subordinates, right? Yeah, go in there and check that out. Uh, real quick, so what I was gonna just touch on, just for a minute, is, for example, this is what Carrie talked about was our Pulse app, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but like this is audio. This is where we upload evidence. This is Gray Cliff, which we're gonna do an broadcast on it. So this is what we were talking about. You have equipment, secondary. This right here is location. We take pictures of equipment. You upload that to the application. You describe where it's located. You have capture time. Um, so you can select the time that the evidence was captured, direction, carried by investigators, and then what was captured, noise, visual, voice. So you have all these different things to choose from. And we have secondary you can upload. Here you can tie it to, so if Dave had an audio and I had an audio, I capture something and I hear Dave's, I can actually tie these two together. Altered, this is if you altered the audio and Dave, I want, this is important because if me and Dave or anybody on our team says, oh, this is altered audio, what it means is we amplified it or we equalized it, we changed the pitch. We don't mean altered by adding effects or anything. What we're doing is actually trying to clean the audio up. And we list and keep all that information, and we have more information down here. But anyway, and we have a similar form for photos. Um, you can upload your altered. Anyway, so this is what I just wanted to show that real quick because it's what Carrie was talking about. There's a reason why we capture all this stuff to analyze later, and I'm gonna turn this one off here, Dave. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, Cordell, I mean, it's key. I think the Pulse app or the Pulse application is probably worth a separate show. We have training materials in there. We have all the investigations. We have all the audio. We've uploaded video. We've uploaded procedures, protocols. I mean, yeah, it's and we also have a client login where the client can see kind of the audio for their location. Yeah, I think it's I think it is a fairly comprehensive. I think it's the most comprehensive I've ever seen anyway from a paranormal group.
Yeah, it's got a lot of options. I'm gonna come out with a new version, hopefully at the end of this year, with some more stuff, Dave. There's parts of it that are a little kludgy, but I'm gonna hide that again.
Yeah, but I think like if we wanted to say, okay, show me all of the male voices in this location in this area, it's ideal for us to. Yeah, I mean, Bob's note there, it was a ferret, I think, an alleged ferret, which I think Bob left the door open. I think it was Bob.
Well, I know when I saw that. Hey, Bob, actually, I really appreciate you posting that, because that's another area that pets. We got blamed for letting a ferret out when we never did. It never
Yeah.
by us. We never actually saw a ferret the whole time we were there. So anyway, so there's a lot of things that can be, and Dave, this is an important point about this whole thing, is that if you're in somebody's house, building, whatever, I guarantee you, if anything ends up, the owners notice something broken within a week or two, or something missing, your team will be blamed. It's just that simple, whether it's reality or not. So just be prepared for that, because that is reality, right, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, if you are investigating someone's home, so, and we have on a number of occasions where they kind of go out for the evening and leave us, they entrust us with their home. Yeah, I mean, even equipment placement, you have to be very careful, and very respectful of, don't move china teapots out the way to fit, put audio devices down. You just have to, you have to work around it.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm just going to say you have to be very respectful, leave whatever you can, and use tripods, use different devices so it's non-intrusive into their kind of their belongings.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. That's why, as far as residents, we've kind of gotten away from. We don't do as many residents as we used to. We do still do them, but when we did do them a lot, I always preferred to have the owner always with us, at least one of the owners. And that was just the insurance of not being blamed 2 weeks later for $20 missing out of their, dresser drawer or something. Because it's inevitable. I see it all the time that, and you get blamed for something like the ferret. We didn't let the ferret out, but because it turned up missing a few days later, they blamed us. But always try to have the owner there, at least one of them.
Honestly, Cordell, I was on my toes that whole investigation. I had visions of the ferret just diving out onto us. It's I was,
Well, we never did find the ferret.
especially in the pitch dark.
We actually looked for the ferret while we were there, right?
Did yeah.
Because the owner said, "Don't let the ferret out. There's a pet ferret in here." We never saw a pet ferret. We looked for a pet ferret, never could.
We never even opened the front door
No,
until we left. So yeah, it's not sure what happened to the ferret, to be honest. But it was a great location. It was a great investigation.
Yes, it was. It was an old 120-year-old building that had been remodeled into a house or a home.
Yeah. So I think, Cordell, in terms of this kind of session, this is it a podcast? Is that what it is? Or
I just call this a broadcast.
Broadcast. I think in terms of this broadcast, I think we've hit on some points, some of the key points. There's obviously lots more to cover, and we're happy to do. If anyone wants any more information about any of the stages, I mean, I think the equipment broadcast will be interesting. What we do is whenever you timestamp an audio or video recorder, it's time, date, area, location. I mean, that's quite a kind of a protocol we follow, and we do have a standard of how we mark our audio files and our video files. it is crucial because, as we mentioned, if you don't get round to it for some time, then at least when you listen to the audio, it tells you exactly what investigation it is, what time it is, what the location is, who was there. So we don't have to review our audio straight away. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. We do meticulously document that each audio file and each video file.
Yeah, and Dave, like I said, and you already said this, but we could probably do another 6 hours on investigating. And no, I mean it's really
Yeah,
serious.
easy.
We didn't even touch on clothes. We
That's
didn't
right.
touch on earrings and jewelry and stuff like that. Perfume,
Smells, as in
perfume.
deodorants, perfumes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we never touched on that. We never touched on in vests and I mean just flashlights alone, UV flashlights. Why is green better than red?
yeah,
What type of flashlights? So I mean, there's whole topics that we could spend an hour um, uh, on just one little segment of this whole thing. It's like base camp, setting up a base camp. There's the ideal, there's the average reality of a base camp, but when it comes down to it, what's the purpose of the base camp, right? If you don't get any value added, then you're either doing the base camp wrong or it's just not for your team for a
yeah,
variety of reasons. Um, yeah, there's just so much. There's also medical issues by your members.
yeah,
The ethics, should members always divulge their medical issues? Because that's a whole topic. Because how comfortable and what right do you have to know somebody's medical issue? But think about it, 2 a.m. in Idaho, 50 miles away from any hospital, shouldn't you be aware of everybody's medical issues? Because if Dave just collapses and I know nothing of, maybe he's got a heart issue, maybe he's got yeah, I don't know, real severe asthma and he didn't tell anybody, that that could be a really bad situation, right?
yeah.
um
You're absolutely right. And in fact, you know what? I was thinking, Cordell, we've even had base camp in our cars once. You know,
yes, more than once.
yeah, more once we left the location. And we'd sit in our cars just outside and drink a cup of coffee and sit and discuss, the investigation and that. So yeah, I mean, base camp doesn't really need to be in the location. It's just got to be somewhere neutral or somewhere safe. I think that's probably the term, and that term is a collective for a number of different things.
Yeah.
Because we have had investigators who do see something and they do. It hits different people in different ways. We have had investigators just leave, just run from the area and leave.
Well, we have no, it's interesting. There's a location in Eureka, Utah. Every time we go there, we have base camp outside, but it's in the summer, right? So
Yeah,
we actually have base camp outside of the location. We bring chairs, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. So there's this is a huge topic, and again, Dave, I wanted to anybody listening to this, this might not be for your team or whatever, but this is what we do. This is the stuff we think about. This is some of the stuff that we think are important, and it's just what we do on our team and the list of stuff. But um, I don't know, Dave. So what do you think? I mean, do you think all these principles would go over to, say, cryptozoology, like hunting Bigfoot or UFOs, or do you think some of these are sound principles that would carry out onto all these other topics?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like any. It's an investigation protocol, really, isn't it? It doesn't it doesn't matter what that topic you're investigating is. I think the access to areas, that level of respect, you give the investigation equipment and things like that. Yeah, I think it does fit. It might not fit exactly, in some aspects, like UFOs, for example. I mean, that's I would assume that's mainly external or outside.
Mostly, mostly.
And I think your base camp is just where you're parked, or where you're sitting. So but it is similar. It is an investigation protocol, and you have to follow the kind of rigor of protocols if you want to do this right and gather data to identify what this is that you're investigating.
That's the and I just want to emphasize what you just said, Dave, because to me, at the end of the night or the end of the day, it's about data collection.
Yeah,
It's about collecting the data, organizing the data, have it in some meaningful, organized in a meaningful way that it can be understood and read. And but because at the end of the day, Dave, it is about data collection. And I do want to mention, um, I'm a little worried that Robert mentioned that's why you need a van.
yeah, no, it's something we've tied with. Bob's got an ambulance, which we like kind of tied with converting. Because some locations, I mean, if you're driving up through Glencoe in Scotland, and it's absolutely pissing down a rain and howling wind and snow and everything, it just throws everything at you. Having a van, which you could use as a base camp, you could have your screens up, you can have your cameras on the top, and you could some of the battlefields. I mean, there's lots of options for a van.
Yeah,
We did toy with the idea in Utah.
yeah,
Obviously,
good.
if I was going looking for Bigfoot, I would have a tank. Because I'm not sure how long a van would last.
Well, yeah, and there's all kinds, I mean, money, Dave, money solves a lot of problems, right?
yeah,
Uh,
well, yeah, well, like we said, as soon as we win the lottery, we'll get a kind of a base camp in. We'll have a headquarters in Scotland. We'll get a castle, have a helicopter pad. We could fly anywhere for investigations. Great.
and we would have a fleet of motorhomes as mobile investigation unit.
UFO, ghosts, anything.
Yeah.
Paranormal, absolutely.
Anyway, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it's one of the longer ones we've done. And you know, I think we could do this same conversation 4 more times. We would never fully finish it because there's always there's so much involved, um, and it's yeah. Anyway, we could go on forever, I think, on these. So, Dave, next week we got to decide what we're gonna broadcast. We might do an investigation broadcast talking about a specific place. Could do Gray Lodge, or Mojo's. Could do Roosters again. We've been there so many times. There's other locations too, but
Yeah.
also what I was thinking, and I'm just throwing this out for anybody that hears this, because I'd like anybody that views this, leave comments what you want to see. But I was thinking about haunted objects. What do you think about that for next?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's an interesting topic that is, if you're in the paranormal, it's all over the place, right? Every place you read and see, from haunted dolls to haunted dressers, haunted cars, haunted everything. These personal possessions that are considered haunted by everything from the deceased to demonic, evil possessions of these things. The Divik box, how a ritualistic box made out of wood can hold evil and stuff. So this is an interesting, it's one that I like talking about. I'm fascinated with it. So just as a preview, if we do this next week, what in one sentence is your thoughts about those kind of things?
Yeah, I just don't know how. I just don't know how a physical object could have attachments like that. I just don't know how. You know, we had a spate in the UK. They were kind of cursed paintings. These paintings of kids crying, little boys and girls crying,
Yeah.
and houses were burning down. Now, I mean, I think they were so common, everybody had one, and they were always linking the kind of the house fire to that photo, that painting. You know, I don't know, Cordell. I mean, yeah, I don't believe that objects can somehow carry all this with them. But hey, I mean, I'm, I'm, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, we'll have to wait for next week. Because that
Yeah,
was just a teaser. Because I thought we might do that. I thought that could be interesting. Again, I doubt if it's something we'll ever we could finish in an hour and a half. So
but I suppose it gets to one thing, then, doesn't it? It gets to, it gets back to your understanding of what this phenomenon is.
yeah,
If it's a residual or a kind of an echo, then why should it have any link to an item? If it's if it's a time, yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I'll have to read up about it.
okay. Well, anyway, I thought maybe our next show next Sunday will tackle that issue. I thought that would be a pretty good one.
Yeah, well, that's more time than we normally get. Because normally it's like 12 hours before.
I know, it's like, hey Dave, we broadcast in an hour. Here's the topic. Well, that's because Dave, it's because I don't know either. I don't we don't plan this out. I know we've mentioned that before, but in general, we don't
I think
plan
it's
this.
because we're so passionate about this. We
Yeah.
can talk for hours about anything.
Well, we're already a half hour over this
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway, so we're gonna wrap this up. And
yeah.
Dave, as always, really appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are doing good in Scotland. And hey, Bob, to the people out in the chat, great. It's always good seeing your chats, Bob. Miss you. Kimberly, thank you for joining. And for anybody that listens to this, please make comments. Even if you think we're full of crap, go ahead and post that. Yeah, I'm happy with people, Dave, posting, yeah, you guys are full of crap. I'm fine with that. I'd rather have that post than no post. So, also, if you don't follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, please do. Any of these videos or our videos, please hit the like button. It helps us, helps in the search algorithm of YouTube for people to find us. And Dave, again, want to thank Carrie, who had to leave. She had some family business, and she actually left on time. Me and Dave didn't. We're dragging this out as
Actually,
long.
Colin, I think that's one thing we need to cover as well. Is can you take stuff home with you?
Yeah, that's another whole thing, and I
Yeah.
think we've all got personal stories
Oh yes.
where,
Yeah.
where anecdotally you would say yes, you can absolutely, because we all got those stories. And the
So on
question,
that note,
yeah,
so on that note, if you can't bring stuff home with you, then why can't objects be haunted?
that's a good point. You'll have to wait till next Sunday.
I have to wait till next Sunday.
You'll have to wait till next Sunday. No, those are actually I will have a whole topic, a whole broadcast on bringing things home with you, like maybe kittens, puppies. That's what you were talking about, right, Dave? Kittens and puppies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, Kimberly. Oh, thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, and Kimberly, and anybody out there, again, if you want to have us do a topic, yeah, please post it, because I think between me, Carrie, and Dave, we can pretty much talk our about anything. I think, or we'd love to anyway. We'd like to. But anyway, we got to get going. I want to thank everybody. I'm going to let Dave say goodnight. This is my goodnight. I appreciate everything. Subscribe to us, like our videos. That would be great. And again, thanks for your time, because it's your guys' time. Me and Dave have tons of time. We don't care what we're here. We could just do this every day, but I appreciate all your guys' times, because you don't have to watch us or listen to us. So we appreciate it. And on that note, I want to say good night, and I'm going to let Dave say good night.
Yeah, good night, everybody. And yes, like I said, I mean, we've just scratched the surface. Hopefully, you might have found this useful. You can use some of it, all of it, none of it. It's just there for guidance. And from just the experience we have acquired over the years.
Say good night, Dave.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, or good afternoon to those in the States. Anyway, thank you for watching. We'll see you
Okay,
next.
cheers, bud. Thanks.